Walking in a wink of wonderland, there's only one Volsunga. What a
Incoming
tune.
message.
Some actual work. Volsunga transfer. Oh, okay. 18-year-old from the Molde under 19s. Icelandic. He's not homegrown in nation. What's happened here? 13 under 21 caps, 2 under 21 goals. He was going to become Norwegian in 6 months. Get in, Volsunga. That's a brilliant transfer. Oh, I love that club. Oh,
Looking for trouble and fights, but you found me. No, I'm a screw up, but baby, I'm glad you're someone to rely on, someone to rely on. No, I'm a screw up, but baby, I could be someone to rely on, someone to rely on, someone to rely on.
hello everyone, and welcome back to Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well. And today in episode number 41, we play our 4th Europa League group stage game away at Lokomotiv Moscow. And off the back of that, we will have our end of season review. A little bit weird when those happen here in Iceland, but we'll get those done before we officially in-game turn over into season number 5 of this Build a Nation save. So if you are looking forward to this one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. But we are starting today's episode with a little bit of transfer news, things we've got only the one game in today's episode. Thought we'd give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek at some of the business that we are looking at doing in this upcoming window, and this is our first bit of business, a young Icelandic winger at Molde under 19s. This is Thorstein Arnason. In terms of his technicals and his mentals, they're okay without being great, but physically, he is quick and he is rapid. That acceleration, agility, and balance, he looks like he could be a very good option for us. Currently selected on screen as a winger, but you can see there he's actually a bit more comfortable playing in the midfield, and that would probably suit us quite nicely, as we do have quite a few wingers here at the club already. But a good young Icelandic talent, and one of the reasons that we did look at signing this guy is not going to be able to become either homegrown in nation or at club, having spent his career at Molde today. But what we are going to be able to do through this transfer is make sure that he does not qualify to become eligible to play for Norway. Only 172 days until he becomes eligible for Norway. So with this transfer, we will stop Norway poaching one of our young up-and-coming talents. And as you can see and would have seen from the intro, he has had a decent record in the under-21 side already with 13 caps and 2 goals, and I imagine those have been coming from either the midfield or out on the wing. So that's not a bad record for a player in that position. The only slight downside, we've to pay a little bit of money for this guy, £1.2 million, but considering that we are kind of doing this both for the club and for the country, for the national team, I don't feel like that's too bad. And looking at those physicals, I think it's not the worst bit of business getting this guy off Molde. That is our first transfer that we've done off the back of the end of the domestic season. That is going to be going through on the 21st of February next year, is Thorstein Arnason, getting him off Molde, where he hasn't had a heap of game time up until this most recent season for the second team. But as you could have seen before by those attributes, I think he could become quite a good player and a good player to keep around in the Icelandic national team setup. But time to focus on the game in today's episode that is back in the Europa League. Yesterday we took on both Young Boys and Lokomotiv Moscow. If you missed that episode, I'll leave a link to it above my head in the top right corner. Today it is a rematch with Lokomotiv Moscow after beating them 2-0 at the Laugardarsvolla in yesterday's episode. We are currently on top of the group with a 3-point gap. If we can get a point away from home here, I think we'll be in a quite good position going into the last 2 games of the group stage in tomorrow's episode. And a point here, we should be in a really good position to make sure that we qualify for the Conference League knockouts at worst by finishing 3rd in this group. So a quite important game, albeit we are missing a few players for this one thanks to suspensions. You would have seen that at the end of yesterday's episode. Both Corbo and Bjarkason are out with suspensions after picking up too many yellow cards in yesterday's Lokomotiv Moscow game. So what that means today is that channel subscriber Anna Christiansson will step in at centre-back, playing a little bit better than Sigurd Bjornsson at the moment. So he is going to start on the left-hand side of the central defence, is the 22-year-old Icelandic player getting a little bit more first-team football now, a player who we can hopefully keep around at the club, being homegrown at both club and country, but he's not too happy with us at the moment in game. We can't actually offer him a new contract. He is here until the end of next season. Hopefully, that's something we can figure out, as we currently don't have too many homegrown club players, and they are important for the registration for these UEFA competitions. And that left wing, it's a bit more of a natural change. Leadson coming in for Bjarkason, so we're not missing out on too much through that change. Leadson has been in very good form despite not playing quite as many games as he has in the last few seasons so far. In this one, he is on a 7.47 average rating. In terms of the bench, Raul Prada is back as a left-back option with Sigurd Bjornsson covering centre-back. And to make up for the lack of Bjarkason and Leadson going into that starting 11, Boscolo Shio comes onto the bench. We still have two wing options there in Nygaard and the versatile Sakularak. So a little bit weakened for the game in today's episode. So it'll be interesting to see how we do get on away from home here in the replay from yesterday's game. Hopefully, we can produce a similar type of performance and keep ourselves at the top of our Europa League group. And we will come back shortly from Russia for the fourth game of our Europa League group stage here against Lokomotiv Moscow. And we've got a very early highlight in this game. 1 minute gone, it is a corner to Lokomotiv Moscow, and Murillo gets his head on the end of that, and that is a dreadful start from us away from home. In the black today, we concede an early near post corner and go 1-0 down. In terms of Lokomotiv Moscow, they look very similar to the team that played against us in the second game of yesterday's episode, but that's a disappointing start. We go 1-0 down very early away from home. 8 minutes gone here. It's a free kick to Lokomotiv Moscow. Looks like we might have fired them up after that result at home in yesterday's episode. They have started this game off quite nicely with that early goal and are controlling the ball quite nicely here, although well, Pedro, great chance. Will he chip the keeper? He tries to curve it top right corner. Can't quite put it on target. That was probably the time for a chip shot there because the goalkeeper was well and truly out of position. So that's a little bit disappointing. Good chance for us there to try and level things. And then a long shot from one of the Lokomotiv Moscow players. Not too long off the back of that. It remains 1-0 Lokomotiv after 10 minutes. 24 minutes gone. Another highlight here, which starts with a free kick to Lokomotiv. They do look good in this game so far, apart from that one chance that we had to João Pedro, but unfortunately couldn't quite hit the target when that was all he really needed to do. We nearly get the ball back there. A tackle from our left back, but in the end, Moranchuk, he gets a goal to go alongside his assist, I believe, from the first goal in this game, and we are now 2-0 down just after halfway through the first half, and it does look like we are going to be struggling at the back a little bit today after losing Corbo at the back. It was in fact Mbiyamba who put the ball in. Maybe that's why we were lacking a little bit inside the box there aerially. Moranchuk with a headed goal. That's two of them now, and it is 2-0 to Lokomotiv, albeit shortly off the back of that goal. We are shown the restart highlight. Hopefully we can get one back here like we nearly did before through João Pedro, but looks like this might be our first poor result in the Europa League if we can't turn this around from here. A very good start from Lokomotiv Moscow. João Pedro somewhat running away from the ball there, and Lokomotiv Moscow do get possession back, and they start to play it forward here. Till just holding things up, plays that back to Zemaletov. I believe that puts one in for Moranchuk, and that is really poor from Bamba. That is an absolute gift, and at 2-0 down, we can't afford these. We'll tell the boys that we're actually going to demand more. We were not favoured for this game, but this has been an absolutely dreadful start. Moranchuk looking for a double in quick succession here. From the penalty spot, Serafalini goes the right way, but we are 3-0 down, and it's looking like it's going to be a tough day at the office for us in today's episode, and that is going to make things very interesting going into the last two games in tomorrow's episode of this group stage potentially, but we are not playing well here. 3-0 down as we approach the half-hour mark. And that is half-time in this game. That was a dreadful first half from us. The only real highlight came with a good chance to João Pedro, just put it wide when all he had to do, as I said before, was hit the target. But apart from that, it has been all Lokomotiv Moscow, and we have got some players out there going really poorly. I think what we're going to have to do here, just to try and get something out of this game, is make a triple substitution. Isidor's struggling, so Nygaard can come on for him. Christiansson not doing too well today, so Sigurd Bjornsson can come on for him, and also Diaz on a 6.0, so Prada will come on for him. A triple change at halftime just to try and wake the boys up. We're going to try and give them a bit of a fire up with this team talk, but we need a little bit of a miracle in Moscow here if we're going to get anything out of this game. 3-0 down as we're about to kick off the second half. 57 minutes gone. The first highlight is a free kick to us. It's a little bit sloppy, and unfortunately we do give the ball away, just not enough on that free kick, close enough to being inside the final third too. Not too sure why we didn't put that right into the mixer towards the far post for our centre-backs, but Lokomotiv look to drive forward again, and this could be an interesting game and result in terms of goal differential. Of course, young boys have a very good goal differential after their win yesterday against Apoel, and that is a great chance for Lokomotiv to make it 4-0. They put that wide, and it does remain 3-0. We try and win that header off the highlights shortly off the back of that, but yet again, Lokomotiv on the attack. And just looking down in the bottom left as well, young boys will only be improving their goal differential at the moment as well, with a 4-1 lead over Apoel. Another great chance there for Lokomotiv yet again. They put it wide, 3-0 just after the hour mark to the Russian outfit. 78 minutes gone is Lokomotiv on the attack. Prada does win that header though, gets it back to Serafellini. Things are starting to improve slightly stats-wise in this game, offering a little bit more than we were in the first half, but still no real threatening highlights since that chance to Prada when the scoreline was 1-0, albeit that's a good header down there from Pedro. Horsfordurski takes on the long shot. Maybe he could have kept going a little bit longer, blasts it high, and it remains 3-0 inside the last 10 minutes, and not too long off the back of that, it is a throw to Lokomotiv Moscow. Moranchuk, it's a great couple of chances there for one of their attackers, but it comes off the woodwork not once, but twice. But inside the last 6 minutes, looks like we are going to be falling to a 3-0 defeat here, so that's certainly going to tighten things up in this Europa League group going into the final two games of the group stage in tomorrow's episode, which will be Apoel away from home and then Young Boys at our home ground. Young Boys looking quite dangerous at the moment, picking up a 5-1 win in their game at home against Apoel off the back of beating them away from home 8-1 in yesterday's episode. So they are certainly making a habit out of giving Apoel a few hidings, but we were just not really at the races there, especially in that first half. I might have to take a little bit of blame for that, but unfortunately with the way that the domestic season is at the moment, we were not able to schedule any friendlies in between that last Lokomotiv game in yesterday's episode and this one. I think I can now schedule friendlies leading into the next couple of Europa League group stage games, so I'll definitely be doing that, as that might have been what has caused that poor performance, as well as those suspensions that we did have going into that game. But it was a poor performance, losing 3-0 away from home. And as you can see on screen, what that means, we are still inside those top two qualification spots, but are below Young Boys quite significantly on goal differential. Lokomotiv only 1 point behind us. I suppose the good news is that Apoel are still 4 points behind us. Are still in a position where we should at least be making the knockout stages of the Conference League at worst. But considering the start that we had in the first three games, I'm still a little bit hopeful that we can reach the knockouts of the Europa League instead of that. But it is very tight at the top of this group going into the last two games, which will be coming up in tomorrow's episode. But we will come back shortly and run through our end of season review here for season 4 at Völsungur. And it is time for the end of season review for 2024, mostly domestically here for us here at Völsungur. Obviously with the Icelandic season, and when this happens in game, doesn't quite correlate too well with what's going on in Europe. But on screen you can see we did pick up 3 titles this year, exactly the same titles that we won last year. Unfortunately, we'll get to it shortly, but we did not pick up the Molde this time around. But time for me to test my silent mouse and see how good this is. Hopefully not as loud as it has been over the last 40 episodes or so. So time for the big moment. Yeah, that was pretty quiet, I think. So I think we've got a good one there. Signings of the season. Apparently, Patrick Nygaard. This was the replacement for Goncalves when he left us, when his release clause was triggered. We spent a little bit more than what we got for Goncalves on this guy. Only started 8 games and made 5 substitutional appearances for us, but 3 goals and 3 assists with a 7.21 average rating. I can kind of see why they do like the look of Patrick Nygaard as our signing of the season. Adam Kiani came in at a very similar time, only played 2 games and 1 substitution appearance, did get a goal and a 7.13 average rating. And in behind that, Ian Carlo, probably the player who's had the biggest influence here so far this season, a Brazilian that we did pick up on a free transfer, 15 starts, 8 sub appearances, 2 assists for a 6.98 average rating. And Sigurd Bjornsson, who, to be fair, not as good a player as I thought that we were getting. You can see the board there rating that as an F, but 6.78 average rating, not too bad, but certainly a player who I'm hoping that we can improve on going into next season, albeit he is one of those players who is homegrown in nation. So if we get rid of him, we're going to have to find another good Icelandic player who we can bring in for him. In terms of transfers out, there were quite a few of these, and most of them did have good seasons where they went. Mamaj, Ryder Song, Goncalves, that one does sting a little bit because he had a lot of potential, but his release clause did get triggered. Ragnarsson, who I can't really remember using too much, of course, Vukan Dordovic, he had a really good couple of years here at Völsungur. He's kicked on with that at Indija. Eddie Otara, who was a free transfer that we bought in, didn't get a lot of game time. They all had very good seasons after leaving us. Bjarki Baldursson, one of the favoured personnel here at Völsungur, had a decent first season at Proto Reykjavik after leaving us for £500. Musamiki, Zysik, and Arnason having decent seasons after leaving us as well. And then we make our way down a little bit further to some more players who just struggled just a touch after leaving us once the club did turn professional and we organised our squads so that we had the right mixture of homegrown players and foreign players for European registration going into this season. So a lot more outs than in, but I think on the whole, we've matched what we did last season. That's not too bad, considering that we did have to cut the fat a little bit when we did turn professional, and a few players that we did have out on loan. Victor Mafio on a 7.16 average rating, and Milan Radovic. They are 2 right backs who we are looking at getting rid of. Radovic has already agreed to join a team, but Mafio's a player. His ability compared to the rest of the squad over the last season has dropped down quite considerably, so he's a player that we are looking to get rid of, even though he did have a decent time out of loan, albeit in limited appearances. For Fjolnir, this season's results, the Islands dealt in. Apparently the board aren't judging our results in any of these competitions. I think that's just something that happens weirdly with this end of season review and where it falls in the season here in Iceland, but we're expected to be a title contender, and we did win the title. It was a tight race there with Vala Reykjavik. The 3-point gap in the table looking a little bit closer than it did actually feel when we were playing these games, thanks to that last day loss to Vala Reykjavik when we already did have the title wrapped up. But we had to finish the season quite well because these guys were putting a bit of pressure on us, and thankfully we did, picking up the league, only losing that one game on the very last day of the season. So we win back-to-back. Islands Dealden still yet to not win the league title in this save so far. In terms of the Champions League, the board were actually very happy with our performance there. They only expected us to get to that second qualifying round against Qarabag. We just got the job done over them despite multiple red cards and extra time, but we made our way through to not only the third knockout round, but the qualifying playoff. Unfortunately, Fenerbahce just had a little bit too much for us in those, but we made it to the final qualifying round of the Champions League, and because we did that, we currently find ourselves in the Europa League. A good start in the first 3 games of the group stage prior to that first game in today's episode, so we're not looking too bad. The board only want us to be competitive in this competition, and we are certainly doing that right near the top with 2 games left. And as I said earlier, that is coming up in tomorrow's episode. The one disappointment this season, the Malka Bikurin. We were only expected to reach the final at a minimum. We did do that, so not too bad, but it would have been really nice to beat HK. That final just fell when we did have a very busy month, and I think it caught up with us there off the back of our first Europa League game, losing 4-3 in extra time after having a 2-0 lead at halftime. That one did hurt a little bit, but the other 2 trophies that we did pick up to go alongside the Islands Dealden were the Icelandic Super Cup, beating Fjolnir after extra time. That game probably a little bit closer than it should have been, but from memory, Mbiyamba did pop up late for us to win that game, and the Dila Wakabi won pretty comfortably in the end. A draw at the last game of the group stage against Hafnarfjordur, which if we lost, we would not have made our way through to the semi-finals of that competition. But once there, we won our last 2 games against teams from down in the one deal very comfortably to win that for the 3rd straight season, a trophy that we do like quite a bit here at Völsungur, albeit the board don't really care about it, but any silverware is good silverware, and we did a treble winning season for the second one in a row. Our biggest win of the season was that Dieldebekar semi-final over Stjarnan 6-1 at home, with a double to Isidore and Pedro, Nicolucci Caviglia and Sakula at picking up goals. The match to remember was quite a big one in the run home in the league, a 4-1 win over HK at home. Wilson Isidore picking up a very early hat-trick in that game, and the goal of the season happened in the Islands Dielden as well against Proto Reykjavik from Nicolucci Caviglia, our club captain, who has been injured for the latter part of the season. Coming from a throw-in at the 70-minute mark when this game was 2-1, he just curves that very nicely into the top right corner. A quality strike from a quality midfielder, and that was our goal of the season for the 2024 year here at Völsungur. Looking at the finances, these should be a lot healthier than they were last year. You can see pretty much everything apart from sponsorship, which has remained the same despite being in the red, but everything else has gone up quite significantly, especially competition prize money, £9.6 million more or less, going up from £3.3 million. So that is very good, no doubt making the group stages of the Europa League has helped drive that up, as well as maintaining our good form domestically. Highest shirt sold to Nicolucci Caviglia, which is no real surprise, followed up by Pedro, Isidore, Bjarkason and Sviderski. 5 pretty nailed on first team starters there, so no surprise to see those guys being the highest earners in terms of shirt sales. We'll just skim over this best 11, I think, because it doesn't really remind me of what our best 11 actually looked like for this season. Stefansson didn't really play a game. For some reason, these best 11s for each year in game do seem a little bit off. We'll have a look at the overall best 11. That might give a bit more of a look at who actually did perform quite well for us this past season. And over to the awards, the club award, the fans player of the season, and also the young player of the season was Xavier Mbiamba at the back. He did have a very good season, very good defensively, and also popped up with a few important headed goals throughout the season. As we went through before, signing of the season, Nygaard, goal of the season, Nicolucci Caviglia, top goal scorer with 30 goals was Pedro. Most assists was Ledson in the rotation team for most of it. He picked up 11 assists. Most man of the matches went to Pedro with 9, but the highest average rating, which will explain why he got the player of the season, was for Mbiamba with a 7.6. So fair enough for him. And we go over to the competition awards. The young player of the year in the top division was Leandro Diaz, our left back, still only 21 years old, the man that we picked up on a free transfer from Porto. He is still doing good things for us there at left back. And the overall top division player of the year, obviously, Xavier Mbiamba, after picking up the club award as well. And now looking at some of the record-breaking club awards: most overall goals by a player in a season to Pedro, most goals by a player in a league match to Isidore with a hat-trick, most player of the matches in a season to Pedro with his 9, most league goals by a player in a Völsungur career, Saipor Olgierson. I don't remember him popping up with any goals in the league for us this season. He didn't actually get a lot of game time for us, but he does hold the record with 71 goals. Youngest player was Brynjar Gudmundsson. We got him through our youth intake this season and gave him a run in that last league game of the season against Valur Reykjavik, when we were giving some of our first team players a rest heading into yesterday's young boys game. Oldest player is now Ledson. He's a player that we are going to be losing at the end of this season. He is retiring but staying on as a coach here. The highest transfer fee paid was for Nygaard, £140,000 up front, so not quite as bad as it was made out to be earlier on in this end of season review. And the highest transfer fee received was that release clause for Goncalves of £106,000, so only making a slight loss on that transfer. But Nygaard does look quite promising for us here, does the 18-year-old Norwegian. And that wraps up the end of season review in itself. We'll also have a quick look here at signings of the season, and apparently none of our players warrant being on here, which is a little bit interesting considering how well some of the guys that we did bring in did do, albeit I suppose those guys did come in about halfway through last season, so I can kind of understand why they were not in the running for signings of the season. And now time to look at the best 11. You can see here that Mbiyamba, Isidore, Bamba, Serafellini, Sekularek, and Bjarkason have all made their way into this team, as well as Pedro, the pick of the 7 new players in this team. So running through the starting 11, we've got Baru in goal after his good solid last couple of years. At the back, Leandro Diaz, the starting left back. Mbiyamba goes in there at centre back to partner Baldason. Mafio still holds the right back spot. In defensive midfield, Lilamosa Bonnet not quite good enough to take over from him yet. Sviderski still in the midfield, as well as Flavio Trubia, the Breidablik man. He is still in our best 11. Ledson on the left wing, Isidore now on the right wing, and up front, justifiably so after that record-breaking season, is Pedro. And our bench for this best 11 now consists of Serafellini, Kurt Shaw, Bamba, Vukan Dordovic. He drops down in place of Isidore. Sekularek on the bench, that great versatility value, no doubt earning him a place in this best 11. Bjarkason, he might be pushing Ledson sooner rather than later, and Stefansson, after his good year last season, still holds a place on the bench despite Pedro pinching his starting 11 spot. So that does it for the end of season review here at Völsungur and for today's episode. But this season isn't quite over yet. Technically tomorrow is the start of season 5, but we're just picking off straight where we left off, and that is going to be with the Europa League. We can't actually go and have a look at next season just yet in game, but if we go and have a look at our Europa League draw, we've got 2 games left, away at Applewell, at home against Young Boys. If we draw the first game of tomorrow's episode, we are going to guarantee ourselves a place in the knockouts of a European competition. That will be something to look forward to go alongside the Deal de Bakar for the start of the year 2025. But if you did enjoy today's episode, just the one game, but also that end of season review and that signing, the 1.2 million signing of the young Icelandic winger from Molde, to make sure that he does not become Norwegian. That could be quite a good transfer in terms of the national team. But if you did enjoy today, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video. And if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. And until tomorrow, when we wrap up the group stages of the Europa League, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.